Every night after work, the parking app told me my car was parked on level B7. At first, I ignored it. I worked late in a downtown office tower in Philadelphia, and the garage app was always buggy. Sometimes it forgot my payment. Sometimes it showed the wrong license plate. So when it kept telling me my car was on B7, I figured it was just another glitch. The problem was, the garage only had 6 underground floors. I used that garage 5 nights a week, B1 through B6. That was it. No hidden level, no employee-only floor, nothing below B6 except concrete foundation according to the building map in the lobby. But every night when my shift ended, my phone showed the same thing. Your vehicle is parked on level B7. After a week of it, I finally asked the attendant if there had ever been a B7. He stared at me for a second and said, "Not anymore." I thought he was joking. Then one night, I got into the elevator alone, pressed B6, and watched the display keep going down. B4, B5, B6, then B7. When the doors opened, my car was the only one there, parked directly in front of the elevator with its headlights already on. I worked late for a property management company in downtown Minneapolis. Most nights, I left the office sometime between 11 and midnight, depending on how many tenant reports came in before closing. The building I worked in was 23 stories tall, mostly offices, with a 6-level underground parking garage beneath it. B1 through B6. That mattered later. I had parked there almost every day for 2 years. The company subsidized monthly parking for employees, and we used an app called Park Track to enter and exit. It remembered your license plate, your assigned zone, and roughly where you had parked based on the garage sensors. It was useful because the lower levels looked almost identical. Gray concrete, white columns, fluorescent lights, low ceilings, the kind of place where footsteps traveled too far and every car alarm sounded like it came from directly behind you. My usual spot was on B3, Section C, near the elevator. I parked there because I hated walking through the garage alone at night. The first strange notification showed up on a Tuesday. I finished work at 11:26 p.m., shut down my computer, grabbed my coat, and opened Park Track while waiting for the elevator. The app said, "Vehicle location, level B7, Zone C." I stared at it for a few seconds. Then I laughed. Obviously a glitch. The building didn't have a B7. The garage directory beside the elevators showed 6 underground levels. B1, B2, B3, B4, B5, B6. Below B6 was a mechanical room and foundation access. No parking. I refreshed the app. Still B7. I closed it completely and reopened it. B7. I took the elevator down to B3. My car was exactly where I had left it. Black Honda Accord, passenger side scratch, Minnesota plate. Nothing unusual. I drove home and forgot about it. The next night, it happened again. 11:41 p.m., B7, Zone C. My car was still on B3 the third night. I took a screenshot. The fourth night, I showed it to the parking attendant. His name was Luis, and he worked the booth near the exit until midnight. He looked at the screenshot and frowned. Probably bad sensor data. I asked if B7 had ever existed. He looked toward the elevators. No. Old garage level? No. Maintenance floor? He shook his head. 6 levels since they built the place. I asked why the app would even have B7 as an option. He shrugged. Software. That was the answer people gave when technology did something nobody understood. Software. The next week, the notifications stopped. I thought that was the end of it. Then on Friday night, I stayed later than usual. There had been a burst pipe in one of our managed properties, and I was helping coordinate emergency repairs. By the time I shut down my computer, it was 1:08 a.m. The office floor was empty. The cleaning crew had already left. Even the lobby security guard had moved to the overnight desk near the loading dock. I took the elevator down to the garage. Normally, I pressed B3. That night, before I touched anything, the elevator began moving downward on its own. The display changed. B1, B2, B3. It passed B3, B4, B5, B6. Then the display went blank. I felt the elevator continue moving, down, just slightly, maybe another floor. Then the display lit again, B7. I remember staring at those two characters like they belonged to another language. B7. There was no B7 button on the panel, only B1 through B6. The elevator stopped. The doors opened. I did not move. On the other side was a parking level. It looked almost exactly like the others. Same concrete columns, same low ceiling, same fluorescent lights, but everything was darker. The lights were spaced farther apart, leaving wide patches of shadow between them. There were cars parked there. Not many, maybe 8 or 10, all older models. A station wagon, a rust-colored sedan, a pickup truck with square headlights, cars that looked like they had been sitting underground for years. And about 30 feet from the elevator was my car, black Honda Accord. Same scratch on the passenger side, same plate, same parking permit sticker in the rear window. I looked behind me at the elevator panel, B7. When I looked back, the car was still there. For one stupid second, I thought maybe I had somehow forgotten where I parked. Then I remembered seeing my car on B3 that morning. I remembered the column number, C14. The car on B7 was parked beside a faded column marked C14. The elevator doors started closing. I hit the open button immediately. They slid apart again. I should have stayed inside. Instead, I stepped out. I walked toward the car slowly. The garage was completely silent. No ventilation fans, no electrical hum. Even my shoes sounded wrong against the concrete, muffled somehow. The closer I got, the more details I recognized. My faded parking tag, the small crack near the left taillight, a coffee cup in the center console. My coffee cup. I reached the driver's side. The doors were locked. I looked through the window. My work bag sat on the passenger seat. That was impossible. My real work bag was hanging from my shoulder. I backed away. Then I noticed something on the dashboard. A parking receipt. I leaned closer to read it through the windshield. Entry, 8:12 a.m. Exit, 1:19 a.m. Date, today I checked my phone, 1:16 a.m. The receipt showed my car leaving 3 minutes in the future. I heard the elevator chime behind me. The doors were closing. I ran back. I barely got my hand between them before they shut. The sensor caught me. The doors reopened, and I jumped inside. I pressed B3. Nothing happened. I pressed lobby. Nothing. Then the elevator doors closed. The display changed from B7 to B6, B5, B4, B3. The doors opened. My real car was there. Same spot, C14. For a few seconds, I just stood in the elevator comparing the two spaces in my head. Same column, same location, different floor. I walked to my car and unlocked it. My work bag was still on my shoulder. The passenger seat was empty. There was no parking receipt on the dashboard. I drove home without looking in the rearview mirror. The next morning, I went to building security. I told them the elevator had taken me to a floor below B6. The security manager, a woman named Stephanie, listened carefully but clearly didn't believe me. She pulled up the elevator logs. Car 2, 1:14 a.m. Travel from lobby to B3. That was it. No B7, no unexplained stop, no error code. I asked to see the camera footage. She hesitated, then pulled up the B3 camera. At 1:18 a.m., the elevator doors opened. I stepped out. I walked to my Honda. Everything looked normal. Then Stephanie paused the video. Wait. She rewound 30 seconds. At 1:17, before my elevator arrived, my car's headlights turned on. Nobody was inside. The parking lights came on first, then the headlights, then the brake lights. The engine started. The car sat there running for 20 seconds. Then everything shut off. A few seconds later, the elevator opened and I stepped out. I stared at the screen. Stephanie asked whether I had remote start. I said no. She checked the garage exit logs. My plate had been scanned leaving at 1:19 a.m. I looked at her. That's impossible. I didn't leave until almost 1:25. She checked again. The system showed plate exit 1:19 a.m. Then plate exit 1:24 a.m. The same license plate had left the same garage twice in 5 minutes. Stephanie stopped smiling. She asked me for my keys. I gave them to her. She copied the plate number, made a note, and told me she would contact the parking company. That night, I parked on B2, not B3. I chose a spot directly beneath a camera. I took a picture of the car. I took a picture of the level sign. I even wrote the time in my phone. 8:07 a.m. B2, Section A. When I left work at 11:52 p.m., Park Track said, B7, Zone C. I ignored it. I took the elevator to B2. My car was there. I got in. Before starting the engine, I opened the parking app one more time. The location changed. Level B2, Zone A. I almost laughed with relief. Then another notification appeared. Second vehicle detected. I stared at it. I only had one registered car. I tapped the notification. 2 vehicle locations appeared. Honda Accord, B2, Honda Accord, B7, same plate. I turned the phone off. The next morning, Stephanie called me before I got to work. She asked if I had been in the garage overnight. I told her no, I had gone straight home. She said security recorded my car entering at 3:41 a.m. I thought she meant another black Honda. She sent me a screenshot. It was my car. Same plate, same scratch. The driver's face was hidden by windshield glare. The car entered at 3:41. It drove to B3, and according to the cameras, it never left. I drove to work and went straight to the garage. My actual car was with me. B3 was almost full with morning commuters. There was no duplicate Honda. Stephanie searched every level. Nothing. But one camera had captured something else. At 4:02 a.m., a man stepped out of elevator 2 on B3. He wore a dark wool coat, my coat. He carried a black laptop bag, my bag. His height and build were close enough to mine that Stephanie thought it was me. The man walked directly toward camera 3C. He stopped beneath it, then looked up. The image was grainy, but the face was mine. Not exactly. He looked older, maybe 10 years, maybe 15. His hairline was farther back, his face thinner. There were dark circles under his eyes. But it was me. He stood there for almost a minute. Then he walked out of frame. Stephanie asked if I had a brother. I said no. I asked where he went. She switched cameras. He never appeared on another feed. After that, I stopped parking underground. I paid for a surface lot 3 blocks away. It was inconvenient and expensive, but I didn't care. For almost 2 weeks, nothing happened. Then one night, around 12:30, I left the office and walked to the surface lot. My car was gone. I called the parking company. No tow. I called the police. While I was waiting, Park Track sent me a notification. Vehicle found. Level B7. I nearly threw the phone into the street. Instead, I went back into the building. Security had changed shifts. Stephanie was gone. The overnight guard was a guy I didn't know well, named Marcus. I told him my car had somehow been moved into the garage. He checked the plate system. The car had entered at 11:58 p.m. I had been upstairs at 11:58. Marcus showed me the camera. My Honda entered through the main gate. I was driving. There was no glare this time. No shadow. It was clearly me behind the wheel. The other me looked directly at the gate camera as he passed, then smiled. Marcus looked at me. I didn't know what to say. We followed the footage. The Honda went down. B1, B2, B3, B4. Then the camera feed skipped. One frame showed the car entering the B6 ramp. The next showed an empty ramp. No exit, no turn. Nothing. It simply disappeared. I told Marcus about B7. He stopped me before I finished. Don't. I asked what he meant. He looked toward the elevators. Then he told me something Stephanie had never mentioned. Years earlier, before the garage renovation, there had been an unfinished excavation below B6. Not a real parking level, just foundation space. During construction, crews had temporarily labeled sections B7 on old engineering diagrams. The area had never opened. There had been an accident. A concrete support failed during overnight work. One worker died. Another was never recovered. After that, the lower excavation was filled, sealed, and removed from the plans. I asked why the elevator could reach it. Marcus said it couldn't. Then he added, but sometimes elevator 2 goes lower than B6. I asked how often. He said, only when somebody's already down there. At that moment, elevator 2 chimed. The doors opened. Empty. The display read, B7. Marcus took a step backward. Inside the elevator, the button panel had changed. Between B6 and the emergency call button was a small round button, B7, lit yellow. On the floor was my car key. I checked my pocket. My key was still there. Marcus told me not to go. I should have listened, but my car was missing. Police were already on the way. But how was I going to explain that a duplicate version of me had driven my car into a level that didn't exist? I stepped into the elevator. Marcus stayed outside. As the doors closed, he said, "If you see yourself, don't let him leave first." That sentence made no sense until later. The elevator descended, B1, B2, B3, B4, B5, B6. Then darkness. The lights inside flickered once. The elevator moved downward for another 6 or 7 seconds, then stopped. B7. The doors opened. The garage was brighter than before. Nearly every parking space was occupied now. Dozens of cars, some modern, some old, some covered in dust, some badly damaged, One had its windshield shattered inward. Another had dried mud across the doors. Each looked abandoned in a different year. My Honda sat in C14. The engine was running. The driver's door was open. I stepped out. This time, I heard the ventilation system and something else. Car engines, one after another. Throughout the level, headlights began turning on, not all at once, a row at a time, like people waking up. I walked toward my Honda. There was someone standing beside it. Me. Older me. The man from the camera. He wore my coat and carried my laptop bag. Up close, he looked exhausted. His eyes were bloodshot. There was a scar across his forehead I didn't have. He looked at me like he was relieved. "You finally came down," he said. I couldn't answer. He held up a parking receipt. I recognized the date. It was that night. Entry, 11:58 p.m. Exit, 12:47 a.m. I checked my phone. 12:44. 3 minutes. Again. I asked who he was. He laughed once. No. He looked toward the elevator. I said that too. The headlights around us grew brighter. I heard car doors opening. Dozens of them. I asked what this place was. He said it's where the garage keeps the ones who don't leave right. I had no idea what that meant. Then he pointed at the parked cars. Every one of these belonged to somebody who saw their car down here before they were supposed to. I looked around. Dark shapes were standing beside some of the vehicles now. People, or versions of people. They stood in the shadows between the headlights, watching us. The older version of me held out his hand. My car keys were in his palm. Not the duplicate key from the elevator. My actual keys. I reached into my pocket. Empty. I hadn't felt him take them. He said, "You have to let me go first." Marcus's warning came back to me. Don't let him leave first. I stepped between him and the driver's door. He looked disappointed. Then you already know. I asked what would happen if he left. He looked at me. You stay. The elevator chimed behind us. The doors opened. Inside stood another version of me, much younger, maybe 19, wearing clothes I had not owned in years. Then another stepped into view behind him, another me, 30, 40, older, injured, gray-haired, versions of a life I had not lived yet, all of them looking tired, all of them holding parking receipts. The oldest one spoke. Somebody has to drive out. The garage lights flickered. My older duplicate suddenly shoved me. I fell against the car. He jumped into the driver's seat. The door slammed. The engine roared. I grabbed the handle. Locked. He reversed. I stepped back just before the car hit me. He turned toward the exit ramp. Every other car started moving too. Engines echoing through the concrete. Headlights sweeping across columns. The whole level filled with motion. I ran after my Honda. It reached the ramp. I saw the older me in the rearview mirror. He was smiling. Then the garage speakers crackled overhead. A mechanical voice said, "Exit validated." The lights went out. Total darkness. I heard tires, brakes, metal scraping concrete, then silence. Emergency lights came on. My Honda was gone. The elevator stood open behind me. I ran toward it. As I crossed the level, the parked cars were empty again. No people, no engines, just old vehicles under dead fluorescent lights. I jumped into the elevator and pressed lobby. The doors closed. For a long time, nothing happened. Then the elevator rose. B6, B5, B4, B3, B2, B1. Lobby. The doors opened. Marcus was standing there with 2 police officers. He looked shocked when he saw me. One officer asked where I had been. I said B7. Neither reacted. Marcus did. He asked how long it felt. I checked my phone. 12:51 a.m. 7 minutes. Marcus shook his head. Then one officer said, "You've been missing for 9 hours." It was morning. Sunlight came through the lobby windows. My phone still showed 12:51. The building clocks showed 9:44 a.m. I asked about my car. The police officer looked confused. "It's not here." Security footage showed me entering elevator 2 at 12:44. The elevator remained on B6 for less than a minute, then returned to the lobby, empty. At 12:47, my Honda exited the garage. The driver was me, not older me as I looked now. The camera caught my face clearly. The car turned onto the street and disappeared. Police assumed I had given my keys to someone who looked like me, which somehow became the least impossible explanation. The car was found 3 days later, parked at my apartment, perfectly clean, doors locked, no damage. Inside was my work bag, my coat, my wallet, everything I had carried into B7. On the driver's seat was a parking receipt, entry 8:12 a.m., exit 12:47 a.m., level B7. Underneath, someone had written, "Thank you for your space. I moved out of Minneapolis 2 months later. I sold the Honda. I stopped using underground garages whenever possible. For years, nothing happened. Then my company transferred me to Seattle. The new office had a parking structure beneath it, 4 underground floors. On my first day, I parked on B1. At 5:30 p.m., I opened the parking app to find my car. It showed B5. I deleted the app. I took the stairs down. My car was on B1. I drove straight home. That night, I received an email from the parking company. There was no subject, only a photo attachment. It showed a black Honda Accord parked in a dark garage, my old car, the one I had sold years earlier. Beside it stood a man wearing my old coat. Older now, much older. His hair was almost gray. He was holding a parking receipt against the windshield. I zoomed in. The handwriting was mine. Only 3 words. "Your turn again." The next morning, I checked my apartment parking space. My current car was gone. On the concrete where it had been was a single yellow line painted across the floor. Beside it, B7